All right, what's going on, guys? This is the Loner Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Solo. I got a special guest with me today, man. Goes by the name Sean D. Harper. And he's a pop punk rock artist. And I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe you're from the Czech Republic, right?
I'm not originally from the Czech Republic. I'm from the south of England, United Kingdom.
Okay, absolutely, man. So yeah, this is Sean D. Harper. I came across his music online, man, and I got to tell you, the guy has a really good sound as far as the pop punk genre goes. He's got a great pocket there. Definitely got the voice for it. What I heard from the EP that he sent me, man, it was very good stuff. So I'm just glad you came on today, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, Solo. And thank you for your kind words. It's not easy. Sometimes you write something good and sometimes you write something bad, and you don't know how it's going to go when you're an artist, I guess.
Absolutely. And, that's one thing a lot of people don't know about me is that when it comes to music, I am very eclectic. I like all kind of different music, man. Heavy metal and hip hop being my go-tos. But I mean, I love pop. I love punk rock. I love country, believe it or not. I mean, anything that I can find that sounds sonically good to me, I'm never scared to admit that I like it. So I've wanted to incorporate other kind of genres of music on my show, not just hip hop. I wanted to kind of expand it and give all this different talent across the world to my listeners, man. So we're going to get started, man. So just I want to know how it was for you kind of growing up, man, and just kind of give us how you were coming up before music.
I grew up in the south of England, born and raised, I guess you can say, specifically in Hampshire, which is an hour south of London. So it really is like the south of England, like it's near the water. Mm-hmm. And growing up there, it wasn't like very diverse in a way. It's very, very white, very religious Christian, and like it wasn't very common for people to kind of play punk rock growing up, like where I was from until about the late 90s, and that's when like there was a big sort of resurgence in punk music in the UK. I would say late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
And so that's when I started getting into it. At age 13, 14, I started writing music with friends and playing in bands and trying to set up shows and trying to record music. And it was a interesting experience, I guess you could say.
Absolutely.
Not what my parents wanted me to do. But,
right.
But as long as I stayed out of trouble, they were happy with that, I guess.
Right, because I kind of remember, I'm 28 years old, so, I'm not that old yet, but I do remember, back when I was a kid, the whole punk rock scene, man, like a lot of parents they didn't like their kids to listen to it much. They didn't like their kids to dress like, they had its whole own culture, and parents were not feeling it at first when it was starting to really bubble,
Yeah. Well, luckily I didn't play with any mohawks or anything, and I didn't even really dye my hair. I always kind of leaned towards the bands that I think kind of looked like me, like a sort of baggy trousers skater kid.
Right. So that's kind of like my next question, though, man. I want to know, from you being where you're from, and I'm in the States, so I'm kind of curious. So what exactly were your influences to even get you into pursuing that kind of music journey there? What sparked you?
Well, luckily I had an older brother, and he kind of he had the gateway to like all of those records and things like that. He was really into the 90s grunge music from Seattle, like Nirvana and Sonic Youth.
Oh yeah,
and those bands. And then when Kurt Cobain died, it was kind of the rock community was kind of shaken in a way. And what came from that was this resurgence of punk music, power pop, I guess. So like bands like Green Day, Rancid, NoFX, Lagwagon, these bands started coming across to the UK, and I hadn't heard anything like it. And luckily my brother was like really on top of the scene, and I would just go into his bedroom and steal his records and just like picked out the things that I liked, and then, and threw away the things that I didn't enjoy.
Right. Okay, so let me ask you this then, man. So when was the moment that you decided to pick up an instrument and learn to play?
I guess it was like age 13. I was in a band with some friends, and I was the vocalist. And I went to a band practice, and I can't remember the melody, but I just said to the guitarist, "Can you do something like this, like do 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 do?" And he looked at me and he said, "I can't do that." I went, "What do you mean?" And he went, "Well, you can't just like throw me some notes and expect me to play it." So I was a bit like bemused at this, and I thought, well, if I'm creating these like melodies in my head, why don't I just learn how to play the guitar myself? And that's kind of like how I write songs today. I think of a melody in my head, and then I try and put it on guitar, and then I expand from that.
Okay, so is that the first instrument you learned to play was guitar? Do you know any other instruments? Did you learn any more?
Like through that, because I wasn't great at guitar, I suddenly got into playing bass because we already had a guitarist in the band. So I was playing bass, and then after a few years, my guitar playing got a bit more competent. I got a bit more competent at playing guitar. So I kind of transitioned to playing guitar and singing in a band. But yeah, I can't play really anything else. I try to fiddle around on a piano, but I'm terrible.
Okay, I got you, man. Yeah, but I can definitely tell by the music I heard from you, man. You definitely got a great poppy punk rock voice. You got the vocals like down to a T, man. It sounds really good.
Yeah, there was a lot of vocal takes that day in the studio, and I worked with a good producer. Like he was able to get the best version of me, I guess, because sometimes when I've recorded things in the past, like, you know, maybe just on the day you're not feeling it, but that's the end result that you have. But through this process with Heel Turn, my new EP, I think the producer and I were really able to sort of like get me sounding good, I guess.
Right. Well, good.
Better. The best version of myself.
Right. So I'm kind of curious though, man, because I used to do hip hop recording. I used to record hip hop music, and you know, I know how that process is, but I've never actually knew how rock artists or people that use, you know, instruments in their music. I don't know how you guys record, like what the studio sessions are like. Could you break that down to me?
Well, this time round, it was completely unique and new to me how we did it. So usually a band will spend a lot of practice sessions getting really tight. So when they go into the studio, they don't like mess around, and the first thing they put down is the drums. And then after they've tracked the drums, you put down the guitars, and then you put down the vocals. And once you've got all of that together, you can add like all of the little additional effects and
oh wow, okay,
little Easter eggs. But with this record that I've just released, I don't actually have a live band yet. I've got some members, and we're going to start having some practices soon. But I had all of the songs and all of the ideas in my head, so I went to the studio and I tracked the guitars first, and then I found a really good drummer in Liberec. That's where I live now, and I gave him 1 week to learn the songs, and then he went into the studios and then tracked the drums, and then I retracked the guitars and the bass, and then put down the vocals, like solid vocals. Because I originally put down some demo vocals for the drummer to follow, but they weren't like good enough. So I had to redo the vocals again.
Wow. My bad. Go ahead, man. I didn't want to cut you off.
It's just, that's usually the format is drums, guitars, vocals. And then my way we did it is guitars, vocals, drums, and then retracked everything all over again. So it was quite long-winded, but it worked out okay.
Yeah, that's interesting though, man. So see, this is all my listeners listening. I got a lot of hip hop fans, but I do want you guys to understand, this is what you have to respect about, you know, rock stars or country music guys and things like that, is that they have so much more work that they have to put into their recording sessions. Because, you know, hip hop artists, we can go into a studio with just send an MP3 track via email. You know, they just play the track in the headphones and we just record vocals, no problem. But, you know, the process that goes in when you play live instruments, or you're a rock guy or a country singer or some kind of live instruments user, I didn't realize how extensive that process was. I've never actually seen a band or anything, like record a record live or, you know, in the studio. So I was very curious about how that went down. So I got to tell you, man, that takes a lot of work, a lot of commitment, and I respect the hell out of that.
Yeah, it's a fun process. It can be a grueling process, but that's what I love about hip hop and how it's so different. Because I'm an English teacher, and I actually teach a rapper from the Czech Republic. He's called Polygarand, and he's actually quite popular. He gets dubbed as like the Macklemore of the Czech Republic.
Oh wow!
But it's interesting speaking to him because like his process is so different to my process, because it's just like he works on so many loops and like works on beats before he adds like his lyrics, but he's always writing lyrics. But the writing process is so kind of different because mine is so based on melody, whereas his is just so based on the kind of the written word, like rhyming, trying to get as many rhyming couplets as possible into a bar. Whereas like you don't have that much leg room to work when you're writing a kind of pop song.
Right. So that's kind of like my next question though, man. I want to know, I mean, if there is any distinct differences between writing in that kind of genre and the pop punk genre versus writing in the hip hop. Like how does the writing process go for you guys, man, with the kind of music that y'all do? I'm curious to know this.
Well, I think like it's so different. It's probably the same with hip hop artists, but with some punk bands or rock bands, they will write the guitars first. So they'll write the guitar riff, and then they'll write the vocal melody over the riff, if you see what I mean. And then they'll write a song based around that. But with me, I like to write a chorus first. So I usually think of a chorus, and then I work on verses that like will work well with the chorus, and then add extra things like an intro or a middle eight to go after it. That so it just depends on the songwriter, I guess. But for me, it's like melody is the most fundamental thing in a pop song, especially like a chorus. The chorus melody for me has to be quite big for it to be memorable.
Right, yeah, because I mean that's usually the part of the song that people are, gonna, really get excited about the most. But so I want to know exactly, have you ever performed on stage anywhere or like in front of a live crowd?
Yeah, I've performed quite a bit, especially in my teenage years up until my early 20s, and then I actually took a hiatus, I guess you could call it, from performing and writing altogether. When I was 25, when I went to university, I decided to just concentrate on studying, and I think I needed that break. And then once I finished uni, I played a couple of like acoustic solo shows, but I'm now sort of entering playing shows again now, like properly and more professionally, I guess you could say.
Right. So I'm kind of curious to know this, man. Like, what's your energy like when you do a live performance?
I think I'm going to change my energy. My energy used to be like I would be sweating buckets by the end of the show. I just would be like jumping around,
right,
screaming, sometimes not in tune, and playing the guitar like rapidly. But now the way I want to approach live shows is that I'm not going to play guitar. I want to be more of a sort of front man and just focus solely on providing a good vocal performance.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Playing guitar and singing at the same time works for some artists, and it does work for me. But I think I get really excited when I'm on stage. That I will either make a mistake when I'm singing, or I'll make a mistake on the guitar. So, like going forward after like COVID, when that starts calming down a lot more, I will definitely look at being like more of just a front man.
Right. Okay. I respect that. That's actually why Eddie Van Halen is probably my favorite guitarist of all time. I literally watched this guy. I seen a video of him performing, dude, and he just had this solo. I mean, he just sat down on the edge of the stage. He had a cigarette that he put in the end of the guitar. Bro, it was the most amazing shit I've ever seen in my life, and he just he just blew the guitar out of the fucking water. I was like, holy shit. Like, so people that's always been able to play it, yeah, man, people that's able to play instruments while performing and just be that comfortable with it, it's just that kind of shit blows my mind, man. Like I would love to perform with a live band and actually work with a band one day. But I mean, that shit's kind of scary for somebody in my type of genre though, because I mean, I'm not used to it. I don't know much about it, but it's, you know, the whole rock and punk rock scene, I've always been so interested in it because it's just so high energy and so much talent that has to go into that, bro. Like you can't just go in there and sing and or put vocals down. That's it. Like you have to learn how to play an instrument. You have to record the instrument. It's just a whole process that I'm like, damn, you know, like these guys, you have to be a serious artist to even record a record in that kind of genre. I mean, hip hop artists, we can record on a free app on our damn phones, you know, and just put it out on SoundCloud, no fucking problem. But with artists in that kind of genre that you're in, man, it's like you got to be very committed and take that shit serious because it takes a lot of damn work to just put like one record out. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I think with putting this recent EP together, it's just made me realize, like, you know, how much work does go into it. And I'm now starting to work on an album, and you know, I really want that to sound as good as possible. But what I love is that I'm still learning. I started this when I was 13 years old.
Wow. And
it's kind of, you know, it's because I have a normal job. I work as a teacher, but I see it more than just a hobby. I know the ultimate goal is to sort of try and make an actual living from this. I'm nearly 35.
Okay, so, yeah, that's not old. Yeah.
So I've been doing it for 22 years.
Oh wow, okay, I got you, man. Yeah, life definitely can get in the way, man.
Yeah, and it's still like I'm still not at a stage where I'm like completely happy, and that's what I love about the process. That it's just that
right. So
for knowledge.
Right. I want to talk about your EP though, man. I want to know like what headspace were you in when you wrote the songs for that, and you know exactly what was the kind of energy that you was trying to put out through that project.
So I think like the most positive thing to come from coronavirus was during the first lockdown. I lost 2/3 of my business, so I had a lot of free time, and I just started writing a lot. And I think at first, like there's the first track on the EP is called Deadweight. And I think that's like kind of just this sort of like stream of consciousness, what was going on at the time. The theme is about being lonely, wondering about other people. And that all came from the first lockdown because suddenly we were just like so isolated from everyone. And that's where this kind of inspiration came from originally for this record. But as I started writing more, I started looking back on sort of my past behaviors, I guess, like growing up. And the main theme of the record, I think, plays with like good and bad. Like I think there are times in my life where I've always perceived myself to be a good person and justify things that I do. And like looking back now, especially since I've had a daughter, I actually realized that maybe I wasn't always so good. Maybe I did do things that I shouldn't have done. And the record explores that with some of the lyrics, I guess. You can feel that in Dry Skin, which is kind of deals with alcoholism and addiction. And maybe, I think ignorantly, I didn't realize maybe how destructive my behavior was at times. And I tried to justify it by pretending to be this good person. But obviously deep down, I was doing something quite destructive. Right. And that's why I had this wrestling mask. I got the artist to draw like a Mexican wrestling mask. So I like this idea of how we want ourselves to be seen. You know, we sort of put on a mask, and when you take the mask off, you expose the real person, the essence of that person. And that was the kind of idea, I guess, behind the wrestling theme.
Yeah, the artwork is definitely crazy, man. I like it a lot.
Yeah, that was done by a guy called Cat Mouse.
Okay, definitely.
Cat Mouse is actually a guy from Liberec in the Czech Republic, but he now lives in London and works as a tattoo artist and a graffiti artist. And I liked his style because it's so distorted. There's an ugliness to it, and a rawness to it, and that's why I was interested in working with him, because I felt like the music is quite open, it's quite raw and distorted, and I felt that when I started speaking to him, like I felt like he kind of got what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's dope, man. Now I want to
check him out. If any of your listeners are in London, or anyone like any of these listeners will travel to London and they want to get a tattoo, hit up Cat Mouse on Instagram @CatMouse.
Right, everybody listening, go follow Cat Mouse on Instagram, man. If you're, I interviewed 2 artists from the UK, hip hop artists, so that was pretty cool, man. So yeah, definitely, if you're listening, if you're out that way, man, just definitely go hit that guy up. He does got a very unique style to him as far as artwork goes, man. So speaking of this EP, man, I want to get into my personally favorite track on the EP, Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah.
So yeah, that song, when I first heard it, I said, damn, this sounds like something that could be played on the mainstream radio. Like, this shit is very well put together. It's a great song. Talk to me about that one a little bit.
Yeah, that song originally was called El Generico.
Okay.
And that was because, for me, before I recorded it, it sounded quite generic. And
right.
it was actually a throwaway track. I didn't actually want to record it at first.
Really?
And I wrote it in mind. I wasn't thinking exclusively about Bret the Hitman Hart and Shawn Michaels' feud in 1997.
Right.
But I was writing a song, and when I was writing the chorus, it was kind of evident that the song was about kind of letting go of something or someone, a possession, like at the right time, and kind of moving forward positively. And when I was writing that, I started thinking about Bret the Hitman Hart. Yeah. And like, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan.
I know who you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, that famous incident is called the Montreal Screwjob, when Bret the Hitman Hart was like forced to give up his title at the 1997 Survivor Series before he went to WCW.
Okay.
And you know, I don't want to get attacked for like dissing Bret the Hitman Hart, but I think maybe he should have moved on from WWF, like not so negatively. And you know, you can't take a belt from another wrestling organization to another, like, especially at that time, it wasn't the right thing to do, in my personal opinion. But the Montreal Screwjob, we could do a whole podcast about the Montreal Screwjob in itself.
I mean, it was a good song, man. It was a really good song. I enjoyed listening to it. It was good on the ears.
But the reason why I called it El Generico is because I had this idea of it being like a song partly about wrestling, partly about like letting go, moving forward. And so I named it El Generico because there's a wrestler in WWE now called Sami Zayn. And when he was an independent wrestler, he used to go by the name of El Generico when he was he would wear a mask.
Okay.
He was like one of those luchadors, like one of those lucha wrestlers.
Oh, okay. Got you.
And because I thought the song was quite generic, I called it El Generico. But then when we went into the studio and we recorded the chorus with all of the vocal harmonies, suddenly it sounded a lot bigger than I intended it to, and I felt it deserved like a better title. And I thought, calling it Montreal Screwjob seemed like quite a fitting title, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely got a punk rock feel to it, that title, Montreal Screwjob. That sounds punk rock to me when you hear that title.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be a band name as well. Right,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, man. So I know you said that you're in the works on an album. So I don't know how much you want to get into the album, you know, it's not released yet, but I mean, do you have a title for it yet? And also explain to us, you know, what the whole I guess energy and what you're coming with this debut album of yours.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I think the debut album is going to be coming out at some point early next year. That's the current plan, but I'll be going to the studio to start that towards the end of this year. So it might even be like by next summer. There's no rush. I've just released an EP, so I don't need to worry too much about when the album's coming out. But yeah, working title for the album is Goodbye Denver. Hello?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, man. I accidentally had the mute button on. Sorry about that, man. I'm the most professional, unprofessional, interview guy. But so that's an interesting title, though, man. Of the album. Explain to me where that title came from. What's the meaning behind that?
Okay, well, I'm not hitting a midlife crisis, but when I was 16, my first band was called Goodbye Denver, like first proper band.
Okay.
And the guitarist from that band is actually going to be joining me in the studio to play guitars, I hope. And the kind of the vibe of the record that I've recently released kind of reminds me of those old days. It has a similar kind of desperateness and aggression to it. Right. And so I think it would be quite cool to like call the album like Goodbye Denver and actually release something properly, like with at least another member of that band. And so it's a bit like I'm not reforming that old band, but I just feel like it would be quite a fitting like title, I guess.
Right. So you're trying to bring that reminiscent energy of back when that band was a thing, just trying to bring that energy to the modern day now. Yeah,
basically, I think it's deserved, and
right.
That was my love, that first band, and it was a shame that we split up when we were like 19 years old. So we were only around for a few years, but that did change my life being in that band, and I have like positive like memories from it. So I'd like to sort of bring it back in a way. I don't want to reform the band, but at the moment, this is the working title.
I got you, man. Absolutely. Yeah, just that reminiscent, energy, man. I understand it. So I want to ask you this. Do you prefer being more of a soloist with your music career, or do you prefer to like have bandmates and stuff like that and have a band?
I do really like being in a band. Definitely. The problem is with being in a band is like everyone has to be on board. They have to share the same vision, and that can be quite difficult to get a group of guys that believe in it and so passionately, I guess. That's why a lot of bands break up, because it takes up so much of your time and money, and you don't see anything from that for a couple of years, unless you start building up a really good fan base.
Right.
And you can start making money from it, I guess. Short answer, I do like being in a band, but I also, because I like doing the bulk of the writing by myself, I guess I am a solo artist now. So when I do go to perform these songs live, I will be with a band, and I guess they won't mind playing the songs.
So is it safe to say you're more of a solo artist, but you love the collaborative process? Is that more safe to say?
Yeah, I do like the collaborative process. I did play in a band once where there were two lead vocalists. It was me and another guy, and it just didn't work, because it can work with some bands, like Lennon and McCartney made it work for a good few years.
Right.
And I'm not comparing myself at all to those guys.
I understand, man.
But most of the time it doesn't work, that can cause friction. So I guess I'm not an egomaniac, right. But if I write a song, I guess I want it to sound a specific way.
You're a perfectionist with your music, and that's actually a respectable trait for an artist to have, in my opinion.
Yeah, some people might say I'm a perfectionist.
Right, well, there's nothing wrong with
my wife wouldn't.
Oh shit. Okay. All right, man. So let me ask you this, man.
You call me half a job.
Oh, yeah. I'm not gonna speak on that, man. Not gonna get into that one. Let me ask you this, man. So when can we expect some visuals from you as an artist? When can we get some music videos done? When can we expect that from you, man? With the new album, or recent, or currently? Or?
Oh man, well that's the thing. I actually wanted to do a music video for Dry Skin, and I resisted. because I didn't mind like financing it myself. That wasn't the problem. I didn't think that there would be a need to, because I've released things in the past and like they've gone completely ignored. And since I've released these songs, there's been like a much bigger response than I maybe thought there would. Like, and you might not be able to see that on, I guess, like on my Spotify page, but definitely there's been like a lot more comments coming my way, like, hey, like this sounds good. So I actually didn't believe in myself that there would be any need to do a music video, but I now regret that, because I think for Dry Skin, the first single, I should have definitely done a music video now. And it just helps, I guess, like when creating an image and a visual of an artist online. That's what I've learned coming into this, like after like my hiatus, is that like, yeah, you need to have all of these things online, the music video, and so there's still time, you know, maybe I'll do one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing about it, man. When it comes to music, especially in 2021, man, people are just so visual. The attention spans are like shorter. So putting out visuals with your music nowadays is like one of the key qualities to have as an artist is trying to really get a big situation going, because YouTube is such a popular.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, people just love to see the art. They love to see visuals. That's, you know, people are very visual these days. So yeah, definitely get on that, man. I would love to see some visuals from your tracks, man. I'd love to see that.
I did have an idea for the music video, and it was like because all of the bars and the pubs in the Czech Republic have been closed since October, and I did a photo shoot for the promo work for this EP in an empty bar called Vokno, which is a really cool bar in Liberec. And I actually thought of an idea of it being me in the bar doing everything. So I'm the barman, and I'm all of the customers, all the punters in the bar at the same time.
Oh wow!
Basically, it'd be a bit of a head fuck. I don't know if I can swear, but
yeah, you're good.
And even have me like being on the drums, the bass, the guitar, and as the you know, they were just like having me playing like all of these different roles in that one bar, because it still is like completely empty.
That would be a hell of a quarantine video. That'd be a good video to drop during the quarantine time. That's right up the alley, man.
Missed the boat, I guess.
Nah, man, it's not too late to do it, man. I definitely would still like to see that, because you know a lot of places are still in shutdown and lockdown and quarantine right now, so they definitely still resonate with it. So I ask all the artists to come on my show, man. I ask you guys this just because I'm curious, you know, and I want my listeners to get to know you guys a little better. So what does Sean D. Harper do outside of music for entertainment and fun? Like if you just have an off day, nothing to take care of, what is Sean D. Harper doing that day?
Like on a free day?
Yes, nothing to do.
Like no work.
Right.
Well, if like any friends and family or like anyone that follows me like knows me might be shocked, but I like doing like MMA. So.
Oh wow, I love that shit, man. Wow, okay.
I'm not decent in any kind of.
Okay.
But I've got a punching bag in my garden, and I like to punch that and grapple it, and you know, like tackle it into the wall, because I have this big concrete pillar that it like sort of like hangs up against. So I sort of like, you know, do these pretend takedowns. So that's how I start my mornings when I can, and it's a cool way to start. And that's the most kind of, might sound the most cool macho thing about me, but apart from that, I will just watch old wrestling videos on YouTube.
I got you. Okay, so you're a pretty simple guy, man. You just have a talent for music, huh? I respect it. I respect it, man. I'm definitely into that UFC shit myself. You know, I'm not a professional at it myself, but I do love to watch fights and people get the shit kicked out of them on YouTube videos. I watch that shit all day, man. I watch people get knocked out. I love watching that shit. Not a big wrestling fan, but I used to be when I was a kid. But now I'm more boxing UFC fan. I watch people get knocked out all day. I love it.
And I've got a lot of respect for those guys. It's scary. It's a scary environment being in that cage, and I've got no intention of ever stepping in that octagon or anything like it. No intention.
Probably a smart move, man. Those guys are fucking
Yeah.
animals, man. I mean, the way I see some of those kicks to the heads, I'm like, there's no way this fucking guy didn't just go to heaven when that happened. There's no way.
Yeah, well, there's actually a few of the wrestlers from WWE did transition into UFC. Brock
Really?
Lesnar was like the most successful. He became like the
Oh,
heavyweight
yeah,
champion.
yeah. I remember that. Yeah, he was undefeated for a while in that.
Yeah, but I think he might have been juicing at the time. I don't know, but
He was a big fucker.
Even without the juicing, he's a huge guy and like
Right.
an amazing, an extraordinary athlete.
Absolutely.
And to go from I know he was I don't know what organization it is in the USA, but he was a wrestler, like an amateur wrestling champion before he went to WWE. And then when he went to WWE, he sort of like at 23 years old, he like went straight to the top there. And then he took a time out to try and join the NFL. And I think he made I don't know enough facts about the NFL, but he nearly made it into the NFL. And then once that fell through, went back to WWE, top of the ladder again, and then went over to UFC and dominated. Like
Yeah, that's an all-round athlete. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's another guy, CM Punk, and I think he hasn't won any matches because he's not a trained martial artist. And
Right.
like Brock Lesnar is just like this really strong guy that's an amazing amateur wrestler. And if you can like throw people down and get a submission in, it's like game over. But this CM Punk was like a independent like wrestler, didn't have any of the sort of right experience or skills going into the UFC. It was more of like just a big signing, I guess, a big name. I don't know. Did you remember that happening?
I can't really recall it off the head, but I do remember him being in that realm, but I do not remember much detail about it.
There's another guy recently called Jack Swagger. He was from the WWE and he's gone into, I think it's called the Bellatron.
Oh, wow.
And he's won a few fights. So it won't be long, I think, until he's actually in the UFC.
I think I remember Bobby Lashley. Wasn't he a wrestler at one point too, and then went to UFC? He was a bad man.
He's another beast.
Yes, absolutely.
He's back at WWE. He's current Universal Champion.
No shit. Yeah, he's a fucking animal.
The thing is, I really don't care anymore. I used to like tell people that I wasn't into wrestling, but now I don't care.
Right.
As I get older, it's just like and
right. Absolutely.
This dude that likes punk rock and wrestling, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in it.
Absolutely. That's what I always try to tell people. Like, look, I come from a certain area. I was raised a certain way, so I shouldn't like a lot of the shit that I like. But I don't give a fuck if you like what I like or you don't. You can just kiss my ass. I'm not living with that societal pressure to like pretend I don't like shit because somebody else might look at me a certain way. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm 28. I mean, I could care less. You guys live with all the social pressure you want. I'm living free over here. I'm fine.
That's right. So, and that's exactly like the punk rock ideology. It's like just do what you want to do. Be you. Yeah. That's
fuck
it.
everybody else, right? All right, man. So I want to kind of get into this too, man. So tell me what exactly your favorite process is about music in general, man. Is it the writing? Is it the recording process? Is it just playing the instruments? I mean, is it the traveling and playing live? Like, what's your favorite piece of music, the part of it?
I think I would say the recording aspect for me is the most fun, like creating the song in the studio and seeing, like with that song Montreal Screwjob, I didn't think that was going to be such a big sounding song, and that just shows you like the what can happen in the studio. The magic of the studio can like take a song which maybe isn't like, if I'd played that song in a bar, for example, acoustically, I don't think people would have responded to it too well. But in the studio, we were able to like just move things around, raise volumes, and that's what I enjoy. Like the kind of the producing element of songs in the studio is really fun, because I co-produced this record as well. So it's just really interesting, just seeing what happens when you are in the studio. I went in there with 6 songs. And on the EP, there's actually really only 4 songs and there's an instrumental.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there were actually two songs which I thought would sound really good. And once we started recording, I found out immediately, like, oh man, this doesn't sound good at all. And so you have to immediately scrap that. And then I focused on the other four, and those ones like turned out sounding pretty cool. And then I did this instrumental, like, and that was just a spare of the moment thing where I said to the producer, like, can I just start doing this thing? And I got the drummer to play this like slow halftime beat. And then it's like this, if you haven't heard it, listen to it. It's called Brett's Rope. And it's just this like 3-minute instrumental thing that just sort of like builds and builds. It doesn't change too much like melodically, but it's cool. It's a nice like chill instrumental track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I listened to it all the way through. I mean, I listened to the whole EP, man. I definitely, man, like I said, bro, I think you got a very great voice for that genre that you're in. I think you have a good talent with actually recording music. You know, a lot of artists in that genre, they can actually, you know, play instruments and sing and shit in front of their friends and stuff like that. But as far as getting in the studio and creating a good sounding record, a professional record, or, you know, a record that it's going to resonate with people, they'll like it. That's not an easy thing to do for a lot of artists, you know, even if they know how to play an instrument or not. The whole recording thing, you know, going in there, making the magic in the studio is like, you know, not every artist can do that. You know, the studio kind of intimidates a lot of people, I think, sometimes. And, you know, a lot of people just don't have the creative edge to go in there and actually work. I mean, it's literally a job. I mean, it takes a lot of work in the studio to, you know, craft a masterpiece, you know?
Well, I think it's like, if I want to give some advice to any artists that haven't been in the studio, like meet the producer first and like build a rapport with that producer. Like, you don't have to get to know him and meet his family, but, you know, just speak to the like producer and make sure that he knows what you want to do. And it's also the producer's responsibility to kind of make the artist feel like warm and welcome. That's like also an important aspect of all of this. So if the producer can do that and the artist brings his A game, because that's also important, then you should be able to make a good record. Positivity. It's just like going into it with positivity is the most important thing.
Right, absolutely, man. I mean, when it comes to working with engineers and producers, man, like you really, you know, you guys gotta almost be just as hyped. Like he has to be almost just as hyped about your track you're recording as you are, so that you guys are both got the focus, you know, bird-eyed into it. You know, you can't just go in there and you feel the song more than the producer does, and so he's kind of half-assed doing it. You guys got to kind of be just as excited about it as, you know, as the other. So it's you're absolutely right, man. Get to know your producer, you know, on a personal type level. Like you said, you don't have to go meet his grandmother and shit like that, but definitely, you know, just kind of get a feel for the guy, let him get a feel for you, you know, and if you guys' energies, you know, kind of match up, man, you can make a lot of magic happen when you and your producer are on kind of the same energy link, man. It's crazy.
Well, that was the thing with my producer. I'll tell you his name. Martin Havlin is his name, at Resound Studios in Liberec. And he's an amazing producer. He traditionally produces Czech pop music and Czech rappers. That's his game. He's like an engineering wizard. Wow, so he produces and engineers a lot of the Czech hip hop, but commercial Czech hip hop in the Czech Republic. So much Czech going on,
right?
And Czech pop stars. So I was actually warned by a few people, like, don't do it with him. He's like a pop guy. But having met him before I went into the studio and like handing over some money to him, I just had a good feeling from it. Like, it doesn't matter that he doesn't record punk music traditionally. Like, it was for him, it was an exciting project. And I think that's why, like, there are some of the songs which I think sound like a little bit different to a lot of other like modern day punk records, because it's got his kind of pop twist on it. Maybe like he hears it, heard things a little bit differently.
Right.
So it's kind of good to step out of your comfort zone and try and work with people that aren't primarily in the same genre as you. They hear things differently.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, definitely different perspectives, and working with people that have different skill sets is definitely a huge trait to have when you're doing music, especially if you like to be a creative artist and not just a regular standard artist that just, does this certain type of stuff. Someone that likes to get outside of the box and really get creative. Those type of relationships with people that have different skill sets is very important to make great creative music, in my opinion, man. And definitely your engineer damn sure did his thing, man. He did a really good job. It definitely, your whole EP had that punk feel to it. I could definitely hear a subtle, pop influence as well. I think it merged very, very well in my from just what my ears heard. The sound was great, man. I just cannot wait to hear the album that you're gonna come out with, man. I'm gonna be following your journey, man. I got to keep up with you, so I know when that album drops, I got to get it so I can listen to that, and definitely we'll have to bring you back in the future to talk about that, and definitely have to get that out to the people as well. But before we do that, man, I kind of want to know, what was like, what's one of your favorite memories you have of doing a live performance?
Favorite memories, I guess, for me, because like I've played on like some stages and festivals where there's like quite what you could consider to be quite a few people there, and those are fun. But for me, the most fun I've ever had playing was always like in some like dive bar, or like even like an old man's pub, where like they weren't expecting like a group of punk rock kids to show up and take over their pub, and them enjoying it at the same time. So just that energy where like something unexpected happens, where you think it's not going to be such a great show, and then it ends up being just like, whoa, what's going on here? Like people are now dancing on the tables.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In those really small, especially the small like country English pubs that we have, there's hardly any space to move around. So like growing up in the small villages, like we didn't have venues in even in the nearby town. So we had to create our own scene. And a lot of people, and the way you would do that is you'd go to a pub and say like, can we put on an evening of punk music? And back then the owner of the pub would go, oh, yeah, sure, okay, like just take some door money, and as long as the people buy drinks, I don't care.
Right.
And that's what we would do. We'd invite bands from like other towns from around the country and bring them down, and sort of like this gig swapping would go on. And those gigs were always the most fun. Like it's just random people that like you would say that should be at the gig, and then joining that with people that had never seen a punk band before in their life. And maybe it wasn't going to change their life, but it gave them a new respect for the genre. And that's what I kind of enjoyed most, I think, about performing, is like introducing music to people that haven't heard it before.
Right, and making them fall in love with it at the same time, huh?
Yeah, or at least just having respect for it.
Right.
What I hear quite often is like, oh, you play punk music, Green Day. I used to like Green Day when I was 13. And it's like, okay, yeah. But there are so many other bands.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. And they're all equally, well, they're not equally as good. Green Day became really popular, didn't they? But they're good.
Right. I actually noticed that, man, like when it comes to the underground unsigned scene, hip hop artists have it a lot easier as far as people actually search for the underground hip hop artists. They actually want to hear that. But I don't see a lot of people that's actually digging and looking to find underground unsigned punk artists or rock artists or heavy metal bands. I mean, you just don't hear about people digging under the surface to find bands like that. But I mean, you always hear about them trying to look for underground rappers and stuff like that. I just think that's interesting because there's so much damn talent out there in the undiscovered realm of punk rock and rock music in general that we would never know about, because I don't see a lot of people digging to put those bands and that sound out to the public.
Well, God bless him, but Kanye West, he said in an interview on Radio 1 with Zane Lowe, that was the presenter, that hip hop is the new rock and roll. And hip hop, rap music really is like the most dominant genre around. And maybe that's why especially labels are looking for like those artists, especially across social media now. Young rappers on TikTok, I hear being like picked up There just isn't so much of a demand for punk music these days. There's still an underground scene, but I'd say the demographic is a bit older than it used to be.
Right.
Having said that, it seems to me that like young white rappers are transitioning into pop punk artists like Machine Gun Kelly. His name's being thrown around a lot in the punk scene in a very controversial way. I haven't heard his music. I don't have anything against him. He's just doing what he wants to do. But yeah, there is a weird like fusion of commercial hip hop and pop punk happening at the moment.
Yeah, I mean
that's the new thing.
Yeah, right. I mean that's the whole thing with me. I'm like, to me, in my personal opinion, of me growing up as a hip hop kid, I always looked at rock music or heavy metal or punk as like a cousin to hip hop though, because you got to understand, rock music in general has been around a lot longer than hip hop, and those rock stars throughout history, if you look at the way these rappers act when they go out on stage, or the way that they treat hotel rooms and shit, like they act like rock stars used to do. Like they trash hotel rooms, they tear shit up, they fucking high energetic, they don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about them, they're very aggressive, got a lot of energy. It's just raw talent. So to me, I think hip hop took a lot of shit from rock stars, because rock was here first. So I think those kids took a lot of that same shit and involved it in hip hop, because rock and hip hop, they're not really that different other than the instrumentation and shit like that. But it's, as far as the energy goes and the dynamic of it, they're pretty much like brothers almost, in my opinion.
I think there are similarities between the underground hip hop and punk communities though, because it's so much about the hustle, like, and getting your music to like everyone, like passing, especially when it used to be in the days of like mixtapes and CDs, just going to concerts and just like passing around your music, like, hey, check this out, you can do it, and setting up things by yourselves. You know, young musicians don't usually like have a lot of money at their disposal, so they have to hustle, and you can see that a lot in the hip hop and the punk rock genre. Definitely, there's that desire and motivation to kind of be seen and be heard, and I think that's what like makes those two genres maybe a little bit more special in some ways. Right,
and I mean, in my opinion, though, man, I got to give some credit to, Run DMC, and especially Lil Wayne for incorporating a lot of rock style, punk style. Like, I mean, Lil Wayne was literally, he went and learned how to play the guitar, and he did like a whole rock type album. And the way that they've always, rock and hip hop and punk has always like merged and always collaborated for a long time now. Like, and it's just, it creates this great sound that no other genre can like they can't come up with that kind of sound. I always thought that was interesting to me, how close, the rock world and the hip hop world always kind of work together cross culturally. I thought that was always cool to me.
I think that's because both genres have also been really stigmatized and like suppressed.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Like it was in the late 70s, punk was seen as such a dangerous thing for young people. Like, look at the things that they're saying on these records. Like, they're against the institution, they're against the establishments, and why not? Like, it's just an idea, it's a thought, and that's what rap does. It provokes. Right. That's what good rap and hip hop should do, provoke, and that's what good punk music should do. I kind of wish I was 20 years younger, because the way that I would approach it would be probably completely different. Because I think, there was just a naivety when I was younger about, I think I just wanted to copy the format of like a lot of what other successful bands had done, but I realized that was not the right thing to do. I should have gone against the grain. Don't try and be like other musicians. You have to be authentic. And I think that probably was my problem. Like, the first 15 years of my playing career was like, I kind of aspired to be like other people, and really you should just be you.
Right, because I mean, every individual has their own unique either perspective, their own unique way of making a sound, or their own unique way of vocal out. Everybody has this one unique trait that separates them from every other human being. So in music, it is definitely important to always
and
be.
I think the listener can see through it as well. I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But so originally, what we were talking about, what punk rock and hip hop being similar, both scrutinized, and even. I don't know to this day how scrutinized hip hop is, because it's so it's so globally popular. But definitely, like commercially, there's a lot of decent guys which aren't getting as much exposure as they should do.
Right. I just always thought that rebellious energy that comes from punk and rock and hip hop, I always thought that was an interesting thing that they always had in common, was that rebellious energy in their music, and I just loved it, man. Always have, always will.
Yeah, definitely. It's cool. Definitely so.
So let me ask you this, man. Then we're gonna wrap it up. I want to know. So, what's the goal for Sean D. Harper? What's the dream here? How far are you taking this, and where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years with your music career?
Okay. Well, I see, currently I see this is my last run, I guess, in terms of financing. Because I'm financing. If I can find a label to help me finance the album, then great. But if I have to finance it again by myself, I don't know if I'll be putting as much time and effort into then like another album. So this debut album, which I'm going to be working on, the objective is just to put out a decent sounding record. And if anything else happens, then I'm grateful. But in the next 5 years, I think my wife and I are going to have another kid, so that's why I need to get this album. This album done quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, she's pretty like supportive. You know, like
good.
There are other things we could be spending like our money on.
Right. Well, no, so raising a kid is definitely not cheap. Raising two, not so much.
Yeah, the second one. That's. Having a first kid was a game changer. A second one is just like,
right.
All freedom will be taken away.
Oh man, right?
No, I think what would be nice is to put out an album by next year, and then next summer play some shows, maybe do some small tours around Europe and in the UK, and if things really work out, then hopefully I would love to play some shows outside of Europe, and like the US would be the biggest goal, I guess. The dream.
Okay.
The American dream.
Right. Whatever the fuck that means these days. I get it, man. Absolutely. So Sean D. Harper, man, I appreciate you so much for taking the invite to come on my show, man. You were the first rock artist or punk artist I've ever had. So
I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, going down in history on the channel, man. Definitely, I hope this interview sparks the other artists in your genre that I've tried to reach out to realize this is not just a hip hop show. I do like a lot of different things, so hopefully you'll be the one that sparks them to, actually get in touch with me to come on and spread their music as well.
Definitely.
So just thank you for coming through.
Thanks again, Solo. And I'll be sure to let people know about the show. Definitely.
Thank you, man, and definitely
thanks for having me.
What's that?
Thanks for having me again.
Oh, absolutely, man. And definitely you guys listening, make sure that you go follow Sean D. Harper on everything, man. I believe, Sean, SeanDHarper. Sean D. Harper on everything. Check out his music. He's got the EP out right now. He's got an album in the works. Really excited to hear that. So make sure y'all stay tuned for that, man. And this is the Loner Lounge podcast. I will see y'all on the next one. Thanks for listening.